Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Powerful Man Show. I am your host, Doug Holt, with my co-host, Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews. What's going on, man? You know, Tim, it's so funny. That started off as a joke, and it's been going on again and again. And I don't know, what episode number are we on right now of The Powerful Man Show?
258.
258. It's almost 260 episodes. I don't know if I started doing that episode 20 or 50 or what it was. But it is so funny. So I got to come up with another announcement to intro you into the show. But
No, you don't.
More importantly than that, I'm going to talk about a topic today, Tim, that kind of makes some people get a little edgy, right? That makes them squirm in their seat. And that's to porn or not to porn. And we've had men in the program that have had some serious issues with porn. We also have, the average guy who may or may not, be going to porn periodically in the relationship. But how do you know when your porn habit or your porn addiction or whatever it is has become too much? And how does it affect us as men, really, is the topic we want to talk about today. So one of the things that I think a lot of people don't think about is the inhibiting effects porn has on men.
I was just thinking.
Yeah. So there's a couple of things that, one is for a lot of guys, it becomes habitual, right? It becomes what they do every night, every morning, every day, in the office, whatever it is. And it becomes a habit for them. And with that habit, like any habit, you're always needing more. Right? So the type of porn you watch typically starts to escalate. The number of times you need to watch porn escalates. You're getting a dopamine hit in the brain when you watch porn, just like you get a dopamine hit with drugs or anything else. So you're constantly needing more porn and more porn. And, this oftentimes can cause issues with your partner because now you're leaking energy or outside of the relationship. And a lot of guys that are, using porn excessively, right? You can define your own, definition of excess. Common what you hear is your wife or your partner, is she getting enough sex? Right? Or are you just getting it all from the computer and this animation, this dopamine? And it creates a false reality about how relationships really are. I think a lot of men forget that porn, they're actors, right? And they're acting out people's fantasies rather than the realities coming in.
Yeah, for sure. It can really desensitize you, can't it? So that when you do go and have sex with your partner, you can then not get as hard or not be as interested or like you said, because it's acting out a fantasy for, depending on how often you're watching it, it can then become some guy's norm. So then when they go and engage with their wife sexually, and they might be comparing it to the fantasy of porn, it just might not be as charged for them. And, it's a vicious cycle that as well, isn't it? Because obviously the woman you're with can then feel the lack of passion that you've got running through you. She then probably clams up a bit. The encounter isn't as enjoyable for either party as it could be, which then does what? Oh, well, that was I'm going to watch porn again next time. All the effort I've put in to go and be able to get laid, that wasn't worth it. She didn't do this, or she didn't do that. I just, go watch porn. So it can be a really quick, slippery slope.
Well, it really can't.
No pun intended.
No pun intended. It really can be. And there's been studies that show that excessive porn watching causes awkwardness in men's relations to women. Not just your partner, but women in general. So the studies have showed that men who have increased porn usage, their ability to relate and communicate with women is decreased, right? They become more socially awkward. They figure out that you don't just ring the doorbell, walk in, and bend the woman over the counter, and she's just moaning like crazy. Like, wait, it doesn't work that way. But there's also that awkwardness that occurs, and that's something that's psychological. And there are men that that you and I know that have gone through porn addiction therapy, right, to get over porn addictions. We have men that are business leaders who have all walks of life that come through the programs. And this is one thing when we see sexuality, porn tied into sexual hangups. They're often linked, quite often.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, the title is to porn or not to porn. I mean, what do you feel some of the benefits are of watching porn?
Interesting. Yeah, I think porn can allow you to explore some of your fantasies, especially when you're watching them with your partner. Right? It can be a type of foreplay. You and your partner can watch porn. You and your partner can share porn videos that you're fantasizing about. We talk about in the Sexual Mastery 101 about how do you keep that constant simmer within your partner, right? And so one thing you could do is send them a link, to a video and say, I would love to do this with you, right? Or what have you. Or you can explore your own fantasies and see something that you might be interested in.
Oh, I was going to sneeze then.
Okay, I thought you were going to talk, so I stopped.
If you've got
So,
more to say, share, yeah.
yeah, so I mean, I think those are some of the benefits. Obviously, the easy release for guys that are, especially during COVID, who are single, right? Porn creates an outlet, right? A lot of studies that I've read, Tim, have said that, and these are, I shouldn't say these are studies, a lot of the articles and people that I follow when it comes to sexual mastery for men and men's sexuality will say that having sexual intercourse, when you ejaculate and you come, it raises testosterone temporarily. However, when you masturbate, it actually lowers testosterone,
Mm.
which I think is really interesting. Now, I'm not saying it's a benefit of porn, but I do think that porn can provide a relatively safe when used, kind of like drinking, right? In moderation, it can be okay, right? It can give you a release, So I think that's one of the benefits of porn.
I think as well, if depending on how you use it, you could use it to increase stamina.
Oh yeah,
Because obviously, if you want to increase stamina in the bedroom, let's say you climax in too quickly with your partner and you want to prolong that, then yeah, you could use porn to um, just practice. I say practice. What I mean is obviously get used to being able to handle that tension as it arises and deal with it, so that when you then take that practice, if you will, into the bedroom, then the experience in the bedroom can actually be better.
yeah. So a lot of people that I follow, Tim, would say a better way to do that is use your imagination and use your actual own your tactile sensuality to explore your own body and what feels good for you and take
Yeah.
your time with it rather than using porn.
Yeah.
Porn's just an easy gateway, right? It's one of the top search, if you use a search engine, it's one of the most visited websites in terms of categories on the internet.
Wow.
I can't remember the stat, so I don't want to make it up, but it was something like 1 out of every 3 websites that's on the internet's porn related.
Wow.
It's so huge. Again, I can't remember it, so don't quote me on that, but I know the stat was just mind blowing when I saw it. And what
I think
happens with a lot of guys is they go through withdrawals, just like any other thing that you become habitualized. I won't say addicted. Habitualized, you come through withdrawals and you have dopamine withdrawals. So oftentimes, what will be recommended to somebody if they're deciding that maybe we'll talk, maybe I'm probably 2 steps ahead here, but if you've decided that, yeah, I'm going to cut back and you start to have depression and withdrawals, you can add things like tyrosine, yohimbe are commonly recommended to help with that, with the dopamine withdrawals.
mm, it's like anything, right? Like leaks in energy. If you imagine, we've spoken before about that idea of a bucket, right? And as a guy, you want to be as full as possible, be able to take that fullness into your relationship, your business, just life in general, right? If you've got leaks in the bucket, then no matter how much you pour it in, there's always going to be leakage. And whether that's turning to caffeine for energy, whether it's using food for comfort, whether it's turning to porn, right? It's just another leak that if you do plug it, and I think the key here as well is whether you control it or it controls you, right? Because as we've said, right, there can be some benefits to it. But if it's out of control and you find yourself going to it or running to it, just like you would do with caffeine or alcohol or anything outside of you, even working more, right? Money, then that's a sign, right? That it's got control over you and you get to change it. Otherwise, there's going to be those leaks. And when there's leaks, then there's nowhere near, you're nowhere near going to be operating at your fullest.
Yep. And I think we're skipping kind of the obvious here is sometimes porn's just fun and enjoyable, right? like playing a video game. If you want to choose to play a video game, go for it. I'm not a gamer myself. I know a lot of men are. And, it's like anything else. If it's excessive and it's getting in the way of your goals and your relationship, then possibly a problem, right? And you get to look at this. But when you define excessive for yourself, right? Well, one thing that I saw, I think it was an intimacy coach said, I'm trying to remember who said it, but they said, if you're trying to figure out if you're watching too much porn or masturbating too much, I think it was actually the question, ask your partner if they're getting their sexual needs fulfilled in the relationship. And if they're having as much sex as they can handle or want, then cool. You can turn outwards to masturbation, to porn, whatever else. But if that's not happening and you're in a relationship, then maybe you want to turn towards your partner first rather than to porn. Because again, the things we talked about is the studies show that can cause impotency, which you talked about in the bedroom. There's a lot of stories where guys have got to take 6 months to a year to recover from a heavy porn addiction, where they can actually get an effective hard-on. It's like 90% of erectile dysfunction is psychological, right? So that's what I read, 90%. That's huge. It's all between the ears, right? And so you got to clear that out going through. So when deciding to porn or not to porn, I think there's a few questions, Tim, that I'd recommend guys asking themselves. One, why? Why are you doing it, right? Is it just a quick release, a stress release, a dopamine hit, et cetera? Or maybe it's just your partner's not willing. Two, ask your partner and be honest with yourself first, are you guys having enough sex? Right? If the answer is no, then why not? And that's a whole other ball of tricks here. And maybe it's time to abstain from porn for a little bit so you can get back into your masculinity. That could be an issue. If you go back to a previous podcast, we talk about 8 ways to get back into masculinity. And then, what is your desired outcome here? Right? If you're just doing this for fun, a quick release, cool. Right? Are you doing that? And also, are you doing this every day? Is it habitual? Or is this once in a while, twice a week, 3 times a week type situation from you? These are the questions I would ask. I'm going to throw one more in there, Tim. These are the questions I would ask. But also, are you using porn to hide? Are you using this to hide out and not chase your dreams, not go after your goals? Are you using this just as a crutch?
Good one. Good one. Yeah, a lot of guys use it as a release, right? And it's kind of interesting because if it's a build up of tension that you want him to then release, often that's symbolic of you not being able to handle capacity or tension across life. Whether that's handle your woman, whether that's handle success, whether that's whatever, right? You get to, instead of release that, learn to deal with expanding your capacity to be able to handle more. So yeah, great questions to ask.
Yeah. And I think you want to ask yourself, guys, these questions going through. And if this topic makes you feel uncomfortable, then chances are you're using porn the wrong way more often than not. And we're not coming from a place of judgment. We're coming from a place of empowerment, right? How do you empower yourself to make the decisions that are best for you, right? The decisions that are best for the best version of you, your best life, so to speak. And looking at that, is porn getting in the way? Are you finding that your connection with women is becoming more and more awkward as you get? It's not probably because you're getting older, guys. It's probably because you're using other things like porn. And all too often, like any addiction or something that becomes habitual, is you don't ask the questions until it's too late, right? And we see that happen time and time again with men. And to be fair, porn addiction is pretty rare with the guys that we work with, but it does come up from time to time. And so, when you look at anything with that, we could call it an alcoholic, right? That's a heavy drinking, but what's the one step below that? Just the guy that drinks a lot, right? And what's the step below that? So you want to look at these stages of escalation and where you're falling within those.
Yeah, great point.
So guys, to porn or not to porn? I'd love to hear your comments on this, guys, and what your experience has been. Go over to the Facebook group. You can just search The Powerful Man on Facebook. It's a free group for business leaders just like you. We're having conversations like this. And let us know, right? And let us know what your experience has been. And also go over to thepowerfulman.com/bonus, where you can always get a free training right there from Tim, the Powerful Man Matthews himself. I believe that's the one that's up right now. So gentlemen, have an amazing rest of the week. We'll see you next time on The Powerful Man Show.